Well, I can, Donna was talking to me a little bit earlier. She goes, well, we fill up, we usually, get here, everybody fills up about 15 minutes after we start. And I said, well, of course, we're at Unity. It's no different here than any other Unity church I've ever been to. Well, I'm going to be talking about integrity today. And maybe the best way to look at integrity is this story about this guy who had just died. And he went up to heaven, and he was standing there at the pearly gates. This is obviously not a Unity joke, right? And St. Peter comes out and says, okay, well, you're here at heaven, and I want to let you in, but, I've got to ask you a few questions first. And the guy goes, okay. And he goes, have you ever done anything just really sacred? I mean, have you been special throughout your entire life? Have you just made people feel so holy just to be around you? And the guy goes, no. And so St. Peter goes, okay, well, I'll tell you what. Have you just ever helped somebody out? I mean, for no particular reason at all. You just did it. And the guy thinks about it and goes, well, yeah. He goes, there was this time when I was actually at Mount Rushmore, and I pulled off to see Mount Rushmore, and there was a motorcycle gang there. I think maybe about 25 guys, and they were hassling this woman. And she was crying and she was scared, and St. Peter, I went over and I got in the face of the leader of the gang. He must have been 6'5" and 300 pounds of solid muscle. And I just looked at him and I said, you stop that right now. You leave this woman alone. You just get out of here. And then St. Peter, I went over, there was the line of motorcycles there, and I went to the first one, I just kicked it over, and all 25 bikes went over. And St. Peter went, that's amazing. Well, when did that happen? And the guy said, about 10 minutes ago. I like that little story because, I think in some ways when we talk about moving to deeper levels of integrity, isn't that a little bit of our fear when we say that I'm going to have to be Nelson Mandela and go to prison for 27 years. Or if I'm really deep into integrity, I'm going to have to be like Mother Teresa and just pledge my whole life to poverty and helping lepers. Is that what integrity means? And I think the answer is no. We don't know anything really about Nelson Mandela's spiritual journey. We don't really know anything about Mother Teresa's spiritual journey. All we have are headlines, right, and a couple of stories. We don't really know very much about one another's spiritual journey, almost nothing. And so integrity, I think, moving to the deepest levels of integrity, I think that's what we're all here for. I think that's why we're here this morning is, can I learn a little something that takes me to a deeper level? And maybe it's the song we just heard, which I thought was beautiful. And maybe it's a smile from somebody else. Maybe it's something I say. Maybe it's something that somebody else says or something that you read on the wall. We never know exactly what it is that will give us that nudge to move us forward just a little bit to that journey, that spiritual journey, to the deepest levels of integrity. I think it gets a little scary sometimes because we have these myths about what the deepest levels of integrity ought to look like. And I do think that's a mistake. I think instead it's useful, to understand that integrity and moving to the deepest levels of integrity, I think what it really means are two things. I think it involves understanding more and more and more about the particular path that we're on. And I think it also means understanding a little bit more and more about integrity. And so we'll look at both of those things, okay? And so if we take a look at that first one, understanding more and more and more about the particular path that we're on. I want to get the name just right here. So here's the name, and you've actually heard it before, but you may not recognize it. The name is Agnes Ganja Boyazil. Anybody know who that is? That was Mother Teresa's real name. Huh. Agnès Ganja Boyagil. And the reason I bring that up is we do kind of hold her out, I think, often as, wow, I mean, a very impressive figure in history, right? What she did. And so we look at Mother Teresa and we say, so what was special about her journey? Well, I think one thing that was special was that what she said in her autobiography is that from the age of 10, she knew what she wanted to do, which was to be a missionary. And there's a part of us that says, well, that's cool. I mean, how many people at the age of 10 know exactly what it is that they want to do? Except, once again, it's a myth. It's just a myth. She didn't know exactly what she wanted to do. In fact, I think her whole life, by her own admission, was to keep searching for the call within the call. The call within the call. And I think what that means is we're all on this same journey of this call within the call, which is we kind of have a glimpse of maybe what we're about or what it is we're supposed to be doing, and that may show up in a particular occupation, but it shows up in other ways too. It may show up in the way we interact with people. It may show up with the way that we interact with our family. Maybe that's our call. Well, with Mother Teresa, what she said was, yeah, she knew she wanted to be a missionary, but her whole life was about discovering the call within the call. In other words, to keep reaching greater and greater levels of specificity. In other words, what she wanted to do was she wanted to narrow the call down. And so she started out as a missionary, but then she discovered, oh, well, that wasn't enough. What she really wanted to be was a missionary in India. And so she went to India at the age of 19. But that wasn't enough either, because once she got there, she was very successful, but she was in a particular order, but she discovered, no, what I really want to be is a missionary, a sister who specializes helping people who are in poverty. And so that's what she began doing. And after a few years there, she said, no, that's not even it. What I really want to do is I want to be a missionary that specializes, that goes to India and specializes with people working in that particular place with the poor. But she goes, I really want to work with the poorest of the poor. And that's what she became known for, is working with the poorest of poor. And even that wasn't it. After she worked with the poorest of the poor for over 10 years, she said, no, it's not quite it yet. She said, no, what I really want to do is I want to work with the poorest of the poor, but I want to work particularly with lepers and with people who are crippled and who are just extraordinarily poor. And so this call within the call just kept getting narrower and narrower and narrower. I think that's what we're all about here. I think each and every one of us is to keep finding that level of specificity. That's what our lives are about. And there's an easy way to discover whether or not you've found your particular niche, your particular call. If you're still alive, you haven't. In other words, our whole life is about learning. Our whole life is about discovering all those inner resources and discovering who and what we are and what really turns us on and what excites us. And one of the cues that we often use is the reactions of other people around us. For everybody here, I think if people have said, wow, you do that really well, what do most of us do? It's nothing. And instead, what we ought to be doing is saying, well, thank you. And thinking about that and saying, well, you know, that's a message, that's a cue. That's about what my spiritual journey is about. And I need to just immerse myself in that. And what I need to do is, more than just immerse myself in that, understand that I need to live that and breathe it and be it and interact in that way. At the same time, understanding, but that's not it. Yeah, I get to keep digging my whole life and finding out more my whole life and applying things my whole life. So I think that's what discovering our path is all about, is the call within the call within the call within the call. So I think that's one important piece of integrity. So I think unless we're investing a lot of our energy there, it's all, this is a poor choice of words, but it's almost as if we don't know what to have integrity about. and we ought to be having integrity all the time. Yeah, I know that. But it's kind of like, what counts? What am I here for? What's my narrow niche? And if we don't know it, then we never really know, what is this the line that I draw in the sand, and I'm going to make sure that, I make everything happen around this particular issue? It's almost random, isn't it? If we don't know what we're here for, if we don't know what we stand for, if we don't know what counts, then we draw this line, we go, yeah, this is, well, no, really it's over here, right? Yeah. And we keep doing that. So it's so important to keep discovering more and more about ourselves, our whole lives, it never stops. I went to Unity of Spokane in Washington, up in the Pacific Northwest, since 1979. Two people I loved there were a couple named Fran and John, both in their 90s. And then John really started suffering from severe dementia. And so Fran had to put him in a home there because she couldn't really take care of him. And her daughter, now this is in Spokane, Washington, her daughter from Maine said, "Mom, I want you to come home and live with me." And so Fran is 93 by this time, and Fran is just tickled pink because she's saying, "It's a whole new chapter in my life. I'm going to Maine." It never ends, this discovering this piece about who and what we are at the deepest levels. Okay, so that's one piece of it, is the path. And trying to decide, what do we want to marshal those forces for? And then the other piece is integrity itself. Okay, so I've said integrity keeps banging on the door. See, I think that's what we're all here for, is because it's banging on our door right now, isn't it? And sometimes it's loud and sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes don't we just make some dumb decisions sometimes? And sometimes we make some really good decisions. Sometimes, because we're human beings, sometimes we've done some things that are pretty hurtful to others and to ourselves. And other times we've just done some really good stuff. It all gets gathered together. It's all in that mix. And so what's integrity? I think it's lots of things. It's that deepest level of honesty. That's one piece of it. I think it's knowing that you can depend on yourself. Knowing that you will never let yourself go. Knowing that you will always show up for you. And it's kind of a different way of looking at it, isn't it? But knowing that you will always show up for you. That you'll have your best interest at heart. Not your best short-term interests, your best long-term interests. I think that's what that piece of integrity is really all about. It's being honest, but that's not enough. I think integrity is this merging of truth and love. And if we don't have both of those, it's not really integrity. Because if the only thing we counted on, or thought integrity was about, was just being completely 100% truthful all the time in every situation, we have a nickname for a person like that. They're just a royal pain. It's not so tough to be honest 100% of the time, but it can be pretty hurtful. And we're all travelers here on this spiritual journey. We're all walking this path together, at least for this moment right now, aren't we? And so when we merge truth and love, then what we say is, yeah, the honesty, that's got to be there. I got to know that I can depend on myself. And so I want to tell my truth, but here's where we run into problems on that. When some people who want to tell their truth, often they don't want to tell their truth. They want to tell yours. They want to say, here's the way you should vote. Here's the way you should think. If you decide this way, well, then you're wrong. Well, and see, once again, as I said a few minutes ago, they don't know anything about my spiritual journey. They don't know what I'm here for. So when we say, to tell the truth, what we really mean is to tell our truth for ourselves, not for anybody else. But we want to merge it and marry it with love. Yeah, to be gentle with one another, to understand that everybody in this room right now is walking the same spiritual path. Yeah, we may be at different places on that spiritual path. By the way, even though we're at different places, doesn't mean anybody's further along than anybody else. Yeah, all it means is we're at different places. We've had different experiences. I think that we want to treat people with infinite kindness. I think that's a huge piece of integrity. I was thinking about, as I was preparing for this talk, I was thinking about this just a couple days ago, and I thought, in my life, when I think about the really smart, brilliant people that I've known, I don't hardly remember them. I mean, they went to a great deal of trouble to try and demonstrate how smart they were to me. Can't even hardly remember their names. But I can sure remember the people who interacted with me with infinite kindness, with love, who were just there. And they're just so generous of heart and generous of spirit. Oh, yeah, that's an integrity of kindness. And I think that's far more important than an integrity of intellect. I love intellect. I think that's very, very cool. I love smart minds. But we forget sometimes, people who are very smart, what we forget is that intellect is about separation. Intellect is about saying, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate things so that I can look at them analytically. So I'll take this whole experience of life and I'll separate it into its component parts. If I'm really intelligent, then what I'll do is I'll take out one piece at a time. If my wife and I go to a movie, right? Now, she wants to experience that whole movie, just feel it, And when we leave, she goes, oh, honey, wasn't that a wonderful movie? And, if I'm in the mood to try and prove how smart I am, I go, well, I don't know if it was a wonderful movie yet. Let's analyze it. Let's look at the writing, and let's take a look at the scenic design. Let's take a look at the acting. And she'll go, scenic design? I'll go, oh, yeah. I've got 5 objective standards that good scenic design ought to hit. And she goes, you're killing it. Yeah, and I think that's what intellect does sometimes, is it kills things. It takes the life out of them. It just sucks it out of them. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with intellect. I think that's very important. It's just that sometimes we forget its place, which is it's supposed to be a servant of the consciousness. The consciousness takes us in the right direction. Intellect helps us discern between different options and so on. But it ought to be the servant of the consciousness, and instead we've let it be in charge. Who's Jeremy? Jeremy's not here? Well, I heard you or someone just mentioned The Impersonal Life. Love that. I mean that is just a great, great book. And in The Impersonal Life, they talk frequently about the servant of the consciousness. That's what intellect is for. And that we get it flip-flopped all the time. That we think intellect's supposed to be the driving force. Yeah, good stuff. Well, marrying these two together, marrying integrity and love, honesty and love, truth and love, that's part of the general path that every human being is on. So I think we come down to earth here for 2 reasons. And one grand reason is shared by everybody on this planet, and that is love, wholeness, oneness, and somehow picking up on that. And it doesn't matter what words we use. That's a purpose shared by everybody. And then the other one is not shared, it's individual. What am I here for? What's my particular niche? And so I think the deepest sense of integrity helps us move in that direction. The deepest sense of integrity helps us discover that call within the call. I'll leave you with 3 things that we can do. It helps take us in that direction a little bit more. And they're nothing particularly new, I don't think, but they are useful. And so one is love, and the second one is awe, and then the third one is gratitude. And so if we experience one another and if we experience our lives, and if we experience our family with greater levels of love and awe and gratitude, I mean, that's what starts in uncovering our path. That's what starts uncovering our own particular niche. That's what leads us to deeper and deeper and deeper levels of integrity. So love, I mean, there's just, love, we talk so much about love within the unity movement, right? I'm sure within every denomination that's out there, but this is the only one I go to, so we'll just talk about unity. Yeah. Love is just grace in action. Yeah. Love is just reaching out and just letting people know it's going to be okay. If you like the Russian, it's будет хорошо. Будет хорошо. It's going to be okay. I mean, in the toughest pieces of our life, it's going to be okay. I don't know where this is coming from. Yeah. It's going to be okay. Well, that's what love's about. Reassuring ourselves and reassuring one another. Just to let us know that we're all here. We're touched by that spirit within. And it's going to lead us okay. And in the toughest of financial times, when our heart gets broken by relationships, будет хорошо. It's going to be okay. And I think the second thing is awe. To just now and again, just to kind of step back, and just be in awe of the way God unfolds our lives. Wow. Never saw that one coming. You mean when I lost that job here, and my relationship went away, and my kids said they didn't want to see me anymore. I mean, all those things, you mean that led me to this? Wow. Who would have known? Who would have thunk it? Or somebody else says, you mean when I got this illness, when I got this cancer, and it seemed like life was going to be over, it led me to this. Who would have guessed? I think we get to be in awe of God. We get to be of awe of the Spirit within. We get to be in awe of one another. Yeah. And then that third one, which I think is pretty closely related to awe, is gratitude. Just to be willing to say thanks. To be able to say thank you to everybody here, to be willing to say thank you to the God within, to the God without, to just say thanks. Because the life we've experienced up to this point, I mean, it's pretty stunning, isn't it? Here's something I know about everybody in this room. Everybody. Wouldn't your life make a great movie? Your life... I didn't hear what she said. No. Well, I didn't say it'd be an Oscar winner. Everybody here has been through so much. Everybody here has had so many experiences. I mean, it just blows us away. And that's why integrity keeps banging at the door. Integrity says, you've learned so much. You have survived so much. God says, I'm in awe of you. Look at all the crap that I've thrown your way, and you're still here. And so we say, thank you, God. We say thank you to one another. I'll leave you with this one last quote that you've heard before. Finally, whatever's true, whatever's honorable, whatever's just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about those things. So that's from Philippians 4. And they're really talking about that role of integrity. Whatever's good, whatever's fine, whatever's pure. Yeah. Just, God, help me move one step closer to that. I don't have to be perfect. Here's the one thing we know, though. We just let our faith be bigger than our fears. If you're a human being, you got fears. That's the way it is. But we just let our faith be bigger than our fears. And we don't even know how it's going to work out. I think what going to any church is about is going just sort of right out to the very edge of the cliff of our spirituality. And then the spiritual movement says, okay, take one more step. You kidding me? And about half of us go, time for a new church. But the other half say, yeah, this is exactly what it's supposed to be. So in terms of integrity, in terms of the banging on our door lately, in terms of consciousness, that's what I'll leave you with is just take one more step into faith. Thank you. Namaste.